On today's episode of WatchJRGo, I'm here with Eric, and we are back in the shop with the PT Cruiser we just picked up from Auto Auction Rebuilds. And today, we're gonna figure out what's wrong with it. What is going on, guys? I'm WatchJRGo, and today, like I said, here with the Turbo Touring PT Cruiser Convertible. It's got a whole lot of words in there. I think it even says edition in there somewhere. And it has the 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder under the hood. And we have some updates coming for this. Thank you to a subscriber. Huge shout out to you guys, all of you guys for watching, and Randy for shipping us something that's cool and it's on the way that will make this pretty fun. But today, we gotta figure out what's wrong with it before we start doing crazy things with this here PT Cruiser. So, let's just jump right in. Eric's grabbing the Autel. We're gonna hook this thing up. The one thing is, it was outside in the snow a little bit. And speaking of the snow, these tires do amazing, just like we figured. This thing had zero issues driving around in the snow, which was pretty awesome. I mean, it does have all of its weight over its drive axle, which is always good. But the battery was trying to die out in the snow. That was one unfortunate thing here. But it sounds like it might be good right now. I just hope we don't have to hook the jump pack up to keep doing any real troubleshooting. So, Eric's getting the old MS909 rocking here, and we should be ready to do a little diag and see just what's going on with the PT Cruiser. Now, the check engine light came on as soon as we left Randy's while we were driving onto the trailer, and I figured something had to be broken, right? Like, it needed to be broken, otherwise, what would we have to do with this car? So, luckily, check engine light came on. I wonder how this is mounted. I really wonder.
I didn't see anything under it. I just think it's double stick tape.
It doesn't move easily though. Look at the hood. The hood's flexing.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man. I wish we could 3D print something to replace it. Maybe you take the it does have a fastener. And then I bet you also have to take the hood latch out to get to the other fastener. Let's scan this thing real fast and see what it thinks is wrong with it. I have a feeling though, this car is so old, it might not return its VIN in the auto VIN scan. This is why we try not to work on cars that are this old anymore. Hey, it actually worked though. I'm gonna give it some credit. So, what year is this thing? 04?
It's 05.
05, okay. Anything like pre-01 never pulls a VIN. Just what I thought. This car is too old to be working on. So now we have to manually go into Chrysler, and Chrysler's diagnostics are a mess normally. Some of the most fragmented diagnostics out of all the automakers, especially when you get into weird things like the Rutan that's actually a town and country. This all becomes a bit of a nightmare. PT Cruiser. It does not stand for personal transporter. It standed for P-Car Truck. Apparently the PT Cruiser was actually sold as a truck. That's why it has a completely flat floor. And I think its truckness allowed them to kind of skirt CAFE regulations and get the truck fuel mileage up for their fleet, which is pretty wild, right? Like, what a great idea. They made a compact car and then put a flatbed in there, got it certified as a truck, and it helped Chrysler's emissions out across the board. So that's why the T is in there. It actually does stand for truck. Well, what we came up with from our code scan is actually really, really clean. And I'm not upset about any of this. So we've got oxygen sensor 1 of 1, heater circuit low, and oxygen sensor 1 of 2, heater circuit low. So I wonder if they're heating at all. We're gonna look into that here in the live data in just a second. Battery was disconnected, yes it was. And then the power top switch multiplexer circuit, short to ground, that one's interesting. And then the hatch jar input is an active problem, which maybe it's just open. It could be open a little bit. Here. Yeah, I released it. Slam it. Oh, man, you slammed it. I like it. Let's erase it, and then we'll chase down the 0031 and 0037. Anytime you clear the codes and you end up with all pass no faults, because it does recheck every module as it clears, you're already in a good spot. So we're gonna go ahead and key cycle and scan one more time just to see if any of this comes back. We've got the Autel in there scanning it again, but Eric said he heard some air out here, and I came out to look at it, and look what he found. That's definitely PCV. Hey! Wow, it runs better immediately.
Yeah.
What a vacuum leak. What if that was the whole problem? It might not even be the O2 heaters. Let's look at the live data, but it sure runs better.
Still has a little more vibration than you think it would have.
I'm sure it needs plugs.
It's not bad though.
It has to need some plugs. Well, we've got the same two codes, 037 and 031 for the O2 heater circuits, which I have not cleared since we found that vacuum leak. I know we're not getting a code for this, but there's a pretty obvious misfire. If you guys can see the steering wheel shaking up and down there. The engine is way quieter after fixing that vacuum leak. But let's go down here to the oxygen sensors and see what we got here. So we should see the heaters in here. Here's our heaters right here. They're just named strange. PWM oxygen heater. The O2 sensors have their power. I'm gonna go on a hunt here. We're gonna look for a burnout fuse to the O2 heaters. Hey, it's got the Mopar wires in there. You think those are stock or did somebody upgrade? Mopar electronic suppression. Ooh, look at that. There's a little bit of oil coming in.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of oil in there. It's not like buried in the well, but you can see a hint of shininess on the side of it. Let's see what the first plug looks like here. I think it's blowing a spark out because of the misfires. Oh, wow. That can't be 0.035, right? I wish we had a round gap tool, but let's check. That's like that's a 1/10 of an inch.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
They're gone.
I mean, they don't last that long with the turbo.
No, I know. These spark plugs always last like... I think our gap when we did your race car was 0.035, right?
It's pretty tight.
Look how big that is.
Yeah.
You could, that's point one. It's huge.
Well, I mean, it's got 58,000 miles, I bet you.
Oh, look at the Corona stain. And they're champions. There's nothing good about this.
Yeah.
First, they're hot.
Is the porcelain cracked?
No, it's not, but Corona stain, so you know it's been in there forever. I figured they'd just been changed.
I wonder if they were the original plugs.
You know, they could be original plugs, but you'd think it would have had some kind of Mopar.
I don't know.
I don't know.
PT Cruiser
But
might be just getting champions.
we need to Google it one more time, but I'm pretty sure when we did your neon race car, every time we bought plugs, we ran just coppers, like TR55s or something, and then we also had to gap to 0.035 every time.
Yes.
But this gap is unheard of. I've never seen a gap that big.
That's probably just how I mean, if they did change them, that's just what it was.
Just that worn.
Yeah.
Well, let's get them all out of here. I thought we might get away with not changing them, but we got to pull the intake off this car to change the plugs. I don't want to change the valve cover gasket because there's no oil on top of the plug or anything like that. I don't think it needs it immediately. It's probably a 100,000 mile change, but if it's in stock, we'll change it. There's just no way to get the plugs out without pulling the intake on this, is there? This thing is, it's not easy. And the intake is all of the work. So it looks like what we can do to get the plugs out, they're buried under the intake here. We have to pull all the bolts out of this intake. It should split. And then there's 2 bolts holding the throttle body and the intake to a bracket back here. After we do that, we can loosen this clamp right here and then just twist the whole thing up and out of the way and then change our spark plugs real quick. And if we just change the spark plugs and gap them correctly, this thing should run like a champ, which will put us ready for further mods, like turning up the boost. Well, here's the fun part. This thing is an antique and it does not have a drive-by-wire throttle body. So now that we've got everything disconnected, we do not want to disconnect the cruise and throttle cables there. So our game plan, be careful with that vacuum line.
Yeah.
And this vacuum line is zip tied on. I don't know if we can get that.
I think we can just...
Yeah, I think that's our answer, is just hold it like that. That way we don't have to tear everything apart. Yeah, the seals still look good. That's nice.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure we don't drop anything in the intake there. All right, guys, we're gonna get these plugs out of here and then head to O'Reilly's, pick up some new ones, see if we can get a valve cover gasket. If we can, we'll keep going. If we can't, we're gonna put it back together and then chase down our O2 sensor heater, and we should be ready to rock with all the boost. We've looked at all the fuse diagrams here and we cannot find O2 sensor heat. And a lot of times on old cars, it was combined with the ECU. Now they build cars much better, of course, and they just fuse every circuit. So if your O2 sensors burn up, it doesn't kill your ECU, which we have actually been through. We fixed a car by cutting the O2 sensors off of it, and all of a sudden it ran again once we replaced the fuses. It was a dead short under the car. But what we're gonna do is just get in here with the meter and start checking all the fuses. All right, there's 12 volts. How are we looking there?
Yep.
12? Mm-hmm. 12? Mm-hmm. There's 12. These micro fuses are a little hard to get in. They're terminals here.
Yep.
But we're going through them. Almost done already. Ooh, what is that one? It's directly under the relays here. High beams. So I guess it doesn't matter. And I'm gonna assume the high beams work. So now we don't know what 10D is. That's the interesting one. But it has a cover on it. We just checked every fuse in the car, under the hood and in the cabin, and did not find a single bad fuse, which is honestly to be expected. So we got to see what's up with those heaters. Maybe it was upset because of the vacuum leak or the misfire. Maybe it will clear altogether, which is always a possibility. But we did just spend a couple minutes cutting out all the wiring to those LED washer sprayers that are on the hood. So we cleaned up a little bit under the hood here. Now it's time to get to O'Reilly's and buy some plugs. And we are here at O'Reilly's to find some spark plugs. I did call them and they don't have the valve cover gasket in stock. It's an order thing. So, I mean, it's an old car. So I guess we're not doing the valve cover gasket today, but we don't really need it today either. Well, they got us again with the box of 4. It's got 3 in it. All right, man. Have a good one. We got our 2314 NGK Iridium IXs here, and we're ready to make this thing run right. So we are going to gap these. We're not going to gap them way down. We're going to gap them to 0.040. The SRT4 forums are divided. They say on the nickels you got to go real tight, which is what we always ran. But on the iridiums, you can loosen it up just a hair. Been a while since I had to gap a spark plug. But luckily we've got our spark plug gap tool here, and we can absolutely nail these things. You got the done ones over there? Cool. This is totally cheating, and this thing's cheap. It seems like it'd be a very specialized tool, but you know, back in Eric and I's SRT4 days, we were just talking about, we gapped them by just banging them on the workbench. We give them a couple of wraps on the workbench surface, and then check them, and do it again, and check them, and do it again, and check them. And we somehow managed to make that car run perfectly forever. So, you don't need the fancy tools, but whoo, it sure is nice. That one's right on the money.
What's the torque spec?
Snug, usually a quarter, but
I like to see the big snap and then it free spin.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's never coming out that way.
I think we're just going snug and then like a 16th of a turn. I'm not even doing an 1/8.
Yeah, they're in there pretty tight.
Yeah.
Before.
So we're just gonna go hand tight and then snug it up with the ratchet, and that's as tight as these are going.
That looks like it's at an angle, so Canadian Loctite?
Canadian Loctite. It's definitely cross-threaded. That's why it's going in so easy.
What color is Canadian Loctite?
I think it's red with a maple leaf on it. I don't know why, or it could be the color of syrup.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Someone tell us in the comments what color Canadian Loctite is. All right, so there's snug, and all right, Eric's putting the last bolt in here behind this thing. Also, Eric went ahead, he's an overachiever, so he went ahead and got a second heart surgery yesterday, guys. He decided one wasn't enough, so he went back, got another one, and then was like, PT Cruiser.
Wasn't my choice.
Yeah, that one was. The doctor said you're doing surgery again tomorrow.
Yeah, I was stuck in a bad rhythm, so they put me back in the hospital.
Yep.
And now it's next day I'm working, so I'm telling you.
Lasered your heart. Went ahead and hit you with the laser. All these old plugs look terrible, guys. Now, I did find out the factory gap. Apparently the factory plug was a champion when the factory gap was 0.50. Now, these look way worse than 0.50. They look like a full-on 10th. But let's go find out. So I've got 0.20 here and 0.30 right there. So we have 0.05 in these two feeler gauges. Can you see the gap? Look at that. I could probably fit 0.70 in there. Where's another 10? I want to add another 10. 12, 11, 10. I don't think that's going to be enough. I think it's, I really think it's 0.1. Nope. We're not there. So let's add, we're going to get rid of the 10 and go to 0.15. All right, so this is 0.15, 0.20, and 0.30. That's it, we finally hit the gap. So 0.65 is what the gap was, way beyond what these things can sustain. And these are very, very sensitive. If you have one of these, you know, they love to blow their spark out as soon as they come up on boost. they start misfiring like crazy. Spark plugs are such a big deal in this platform. And luckily, it's like the cheapest and easiest thing to fix as well. So we should be all back together. We're gonna put the cover on this and start it up. All right, let's see if we killed our misfire here. Oh no, the battery's too dead.
Is the battery that dead?
Nope, something else must be wrong. For this thing to be a performance car, what a terrible driving position, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nothing but iffy. You're sitting way above the steering wheel, and then the car has body roll for days. It's just really strange. So we also realized something else. This thing probably needs gas. So we're also going to fill it up with gas right now, because who knows when the last time somebody actually put gas in it was. And it was just popping and banging on those old plugs, and we figured it was just blowing out the spark, but then we were like, what if somebody put 87 in this car? That's probably what they did too. Probably had a lot of stuff going wrong all at the same time. The only thing we haven't been able to fix yet is the squeak from the windows, but it feels pretty good so far. All right, we made it into Mexico, and we're at a 40 roll, and we just want to find out if we've got this thing solved. So,
That's much better.
way better. I mean, we had all the power. It's not fast, unfortunately. It doesn't feel like an SRT4, that's for sure. It feels like a PT Cruiser. I don't know what a PT Cruiser is supposed to feel like, but I can only assume this is what a PT Cruiser feels like. It took all that time to go 20 mile an hour faster. So I wouldn't call it fast. I would call it a turbo PT Cruiser. And it's way better, way better. And we need to clear the codes one more time. Maybe have a look at some live data. We've got the scanner hooked up. But other than that, I think we got her whipped. Well, there you have it. With some plugs, we were rocking and rolling. This thing came up on power so much better. And it has like a two-step. It has that nonsense where you can't really rev it in neutral. It only goes to 3,500. Well, when we first got this thing in here, we could stand on the throttle and it would bounce the limiter at 3,500, and it made all these terrible popping noises, and it didn't want to recover. Everything was just struggling. And now that we've got plugs in and we got that vacuum line back on there and fresh fuel, we went and filled it all the way up with 93. It's running way better. So much better, it blew the vacuum line back off and started dying on us after we made a pull. So we came back. This time we clamped on the vacuum line. It's not coming off again, and we cleaned all the connections too, because they were all covered in oil, because the PCVs on these things are not incredible compared to today's cars. Also, all the lines aren't built like today's cars. On today's cars, everything has positive engagement, evap lines, vacuum lines, if they even exist, because you really just make everything electronic at this point. But it's all so much better now that you don't end up with like vacuum lines blowing off when you come up on boost. So I think we've got this sorted. It's just funny to sometimes have to go fix these old problems that you probably won't see anymore. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time.
Spark plugs, 0.050.
050, well, we know they were more like 065,
Yeah.
which was terrible. And now we've got it turned up. We can turn up the boost in the next video when the new, the stage 1 ECU shows up. And also, I think we're ripping all this out for the cold air intake. I think it's the Mopar cold air intake.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be faster.